Hey everyone, welcome to the Rock Fantasy Files. Tonight it's the 80s crossover thrash episode, aka Face Melting Mosh. So tonight we're going to talk about crossover thrash, which is a fusion genre of thrash metal and hardcore punk that happened in the mid 80s. Some of these big bands were Suicidal Tendencies, Cryptic Slaughter, Corrosion of Conformity used to be part of that group, and DRI, which our friend Ed is wearing a beautiful shirt right there. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about some of our how we got introduced to that style of music. We're gonna talk about some of our favorite recordings, and we also gonna discuss memorable mention and some of our memorable concerts. So lots of memorable. The focus of the show will be on memories from this special times in the 80s, which the three of us lived through, still alive from it, even though
Yep.
some of these times were pretty crazy. But we're gonna go through it. We're gonna start with our friends Ed Farshti, uh,
All
promoters
right.
of the Stars. Our good friend Ed, I will start with talking about how he got introduced to the genre and some of his favorite records.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, in 1984, I would say, I think I was in sophomore in high school, and I hooked up with the only other metalheads that were into Venom, Slayer, Metallica back then. There was like one in one high school, two in another high school, three in another high school. We just all knew each other from Queens because we were all into the same shit. So we'd get together and hang out. By 1984, 85, a few people started branching off into the hardcore punk scene because that's when this started coming around. Discharge, Exploited, Minor Threat, New York City Mayhem, stuff like that, which I liked, but I was a thrasher, so I was like, just didn't compare to me. So like I had friends all of a sudden started shaving their heads and getting into all the punk stuff, and so we kind of like we were still friends, but as you guys know, at that time there was definitely a very strong division in the scene between hardcore punk and metal. So basically, we weren't really hanging out, going to the same shows anymore. But then when crossover started coming out, that I liked a lot because that had the thrash energy, the aggression, the speed, and it had the hardcore just rawness about it. So like with Suicidal, DRI, bands like that started changing over into the crossover. I was like, wow, this is great. I loved it right away. So Suicide, at least for me. I mean, I actually didn't even do any like research for this episode because I remember so much of it and what it meant to me. But like to me, Suicidal started it in '83, and then DRI in '84, and in '85, SOD took a commercial, and that's when in '86 it exploded. That's when crossover was everywhere. There's so many bands, and it was a lot. It was like 1985 thrash bands. They were all great albums. 1986 crossover. They were all great albums. They all sounded a little bit different. So I've got a top five. I've got a bunch of special mentions. I got some records to show. If we want to go into more delving more, I got flyers from different shows and stuff. So love crossover. This is going to be a fun episode. Number five band for me will be SOD. Speak English or Die. Which, as I'm pulling out my albums for this episode, I realize I don't have my vinyl copy of anymore. Some
Oh,
friend must have borrowed it from me sometime in the last 40 years. And I was looking at the record, like, holy crap, I don't have it. So I don't have one of
oh,
those to show. But I
time to
do
send the
have,
collection. Time to send the collection crew out.
exactly, I got to get one now. But I do have the 7 inch they put out a couple years later. They're
Hmm.
still in the Death 7 inch.
Seasons in the obese.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Number four, man, the Cro-Mags.
Oh,
Age of
nice.
Quarrel. Now basically, what I did for all the bands, all the albums I'm going to mention tonight, it's basically just from '84 to '87. To me, that's when crossover was such a big part of my life. There's a lot of great crossover bands that came after that. A lot of these bands put out great albums after that. But these are the albums that meant the most to me. And by 87, I really wasn't listening to too much crossover. It was strictly metal for me. So this is all pretty much the early 80s, the beginning part for me. The Cro-Mags, like I said, that was a huge band for me. Saw them a lot live. We'll get into that later. And just Age of Quarrel is a phenomenal album. Just so
We
intense.
gotta know. We gotta know.
Oh, yeah. Every song on it. Hard Times. Great stuff. Number 3 band, Agnostic Front. New York City. I've gotten to know half of the guys through different scenes, and really great guys, really amazing band. Saw them a bunch of times. Phenomenal. Just when they started, they were hardcore, just brutal hardcore, and really, really great. They were like Minor Threat. I love Minor Threat. I love the AF. I love the first DRI. The early hardcore like that. And so I got my AF United Blood EP when they were still hardcore. The Cause for Alarm LP. That's when it all changed. Victim in Pain, they definitely started turning more of a crossover, but by this album, it was all crossover, and that was 1986. I also got my AF Live at CB's album. This is a great one. Actually, the show was recorded in 88, a little while, which is insane. Number 2 band.
I got to stop you for a second. That United Blood EP. Is that the first printing of that?
It's not the first pressing.
I
knew you were going to mention that.
I have that too, but I got the one where they reprinted it because they were trying to raise money for Roger when he was in jail, and that's I figured that's probably, and it was only like 1,000 of them printed.
Yeah, no, it was definitely it's an old one from back then, but it's not the original. I wish I had the original, but definitely not the original.
Probably the same one that I got. I just
probably. I'm sure we both got at the same time. Yep. So yeah. Suicidal Tendencies. Again, this album pretty much hardcore, but still had a crossover feel to it. And that's when, as far as I'm concerned, they started the genre. They definitely started it. You can't get into it. The whole album is just absolutely phenomenal. Join the Army, when they became much more of a crossover band. And that's when they really, really, really brought the metal into it. And I really love Suicidal. How I Laugh Tomorrow, and all the stuff after that they've done that are a lot more metal and even less crossover, more of a metal band, but it's still great. Institutionalized. The whole first album just fantastic. Number 1 hardcore band, crossover band, DRI. Dealing with it. Absolute greatest. I have the Dirty Rotten LP when they were still a hardcore band, and one of the best hardcore bands as well. Dealing with it that's when they started to change over and brought the crossover scene, and it just the Violent Pacification 7-inch. That's when they were definitely a crossover band, and the crossover album. They renamed, just like Venom with black metal. They renamed the genre.
Yeah.
And then I got some honorable mentions for later. But yeah, crossover is amazing. I love all these albums. It was so fun listening to them all today and yesterday.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought, like, a lot of people feel like Suicidal Tendencies like really crossover at Join the Army, but when you look at their, like, Join the Army was more obvious, like, metal moment for Suicidal, but even if you listen to their original, which is more hardcore, but there is some riff and design of the songs that adds that little bit of that, like, it's, you can feel it.
That's why I say they at least in my mind, without delving into deep, I'm sure there's another band that influenced them, but in my mind and in my world, they were the start of the crossover scene in '83 on that album. Not every song, but like we said, definitely shades of it coming out.
Yeah, like when Join the Army came out, I remember I was like, screw that, it's not Suicidal, and I was like against it. And then, like, 6 months later, I freaking sing every song on the record. Like, SG. All right. Okay, thank you, Ed. Let's go with our friend Count Ralphus.
So yeah, man. I kind of similar to Ed. I think Ed was getting to like the underground stuff like a year before me, but so I start slowly getting into thrash, but I always talk about the steps that lead into even thrash. Like I'm listening to Omen and Manowar and Hellstar, and then all of a sudden I'm getting into Metal Church and Anthrax and Overkill and Metallica and stuff. And I'll never forget, me and my buddy, we were at a store, a record store, And we were looking through the import section because that's where we were finding all this cool thrash stuff. And some older guy with, I can't remember what shirt he had on, but he had long hair and he was older. And I think me and my friend were wearing like Nuclear Assault and Anthrax shirts at the time. And he was like, he goes, "Yo, you like those guys? You like this album?" And he points to SOD, Speaking English or Die. I got this one signed by Charlie and Scotty Ian. But yeah, so we at the time, I've told the story before, we didn't have enough we would just go to the record store and look at stuff, but we didn't have enough to buy an album. But we were looking at it and we realized, oh, it's Dan Lilker from Nuclear Assault and Scott Ian from Anthrax. So we both had $5, so we chipped in and bought the album like we were going to share it and take ownership, like him have it for a week, I have it for a week. So anyway, we buy it, we go back to his house and we listen to it and we're like, what the fuck did we buy? We never heard anything like this at this point. And hearing the song like I Want Some Milk, my coffee grows cold and what the fuck's that noise? We were just like, what the hell is this? And at first we didn't even get it. We were just kind of looking at each other like, what the hell did we just spend our money on? Then a couple of our friends came over and we're like, yo, let's play on that album that we bought. We played a second time and now we're hearing all the riffs and we're hearing how fucking great it is. And then I go at the end, I'm like, yo, I'm taking it home for the first week. And he's like, all right. So I take it home. And then the next time I see him a week later, he's like, yo, I want to have the album for the week now. I'm like, that ain't going to work. Here's your $5. And I kept the album and I still have it to this day. But I have to say that that's my first band. It's the Live at Budokan on cassette and the this second full length that came out years later. But yeah, I didn't even like I thought this was like a hardcore album at the time, because I didn't know the word crossover. And when like you start thinking about it, it's a very weird, tricky subject. What is crossover? It's kind of like new wave of British heavy metal. It's like it's not a sound completely. It was like an era, and I think just like 80s crossover is kind of the same, because later on crossover people will call it like metalcore or they'll call it other things, because it's not like the 80s now, so they're not calling it, like newer band today isn't calling themselves a crossover band. And crossover also kind of meant like you crossed over from one thing to another. But bands like Nuclear Assault, they start off as like a crossover band, so they're not crossing over to nothing. So it's a weird thing. Like in a weird way, this is the band that it's the ultimate crossover band, because Motorhead was the first band that punks and metalheads were liking. And Venom, I've heard them be considered a crossover sort of band, but of course they're not. They're also considered new wave of British heavy metal. So it's just a weird topic. And like I got these two books. This one just came out not too long ago. Tear It Down: How Crossover Bridge Metal and Hardcore Punk. I still didn't read this one yet. It's a real thick one, but I read this one years ago called Cross Over the Edge. This one has The Accused on the cover. This one has DRI on the cover. And both of them have pretty interesting things on the back, like 50 essential crossover albums and 50 essential crossover bands. And it's kind of unique to see what they consider a crossover. And it made me start pulling out albums where they consider this crossover and that. But I don't even have SOD as one of my top 5 bands. But if I was doing top 5 albums, it
Yeah.
definitely would be in there. So for my number 5 band, I'll go with yeah, stack of their albums is The Accused. I
Yeah.
love this band. Horror, splatter rock, they were calling themselves. They weren't calling themselves a crossover. But there's times where they're real thrashy. I got a couple of pretty cool, unique albums by them that I ordered later on. But such a great band. Love this band. I love the horror influence stuff. But they're a band too that kind of starts off as a crossover band. But then I got like this one, Murder in Montana, captured live in concert May '83. I didn't even know those guys were around in '83. And when you listen to this was more of like a punk kind of version of them. And this is a weird old one. Accused of murder.
Oh, very cool.
And I got their CDs too. So many of these. I could have brought out so many things. I got old Accused shirts and With a couple more. There's now the Accused AD is Blaine's version of them, and the guy who the guitar player who owns the name of the Accused, he just put out or it's either just coming out. I seen a video, and so the Accused is out there as just the Accused now, and they're doing stuff now. So it's kind of weird. It's going to be two Accused, kind of like Venom Incorporated and Venom and Cronus, and so we got another one of those situations going on. But
I'll tell you, man, I've booked Blaine. I've booked Blaine twice, the Accused AD, and he's fucking great.
yeah,
He's a maniac on stage. He still sounds great, puts on a great show. Very cool to work with.
I went to one of those shows because that was the one where Aggression played too in
Right.
Brooklyn,
Yep.
and
Yep.
that
Yep.
was a yep, Accused AD.
Yep.
Okay, so now I'm gonna go for my second one. Skip over. I got so much crap I pulled out. All right, this one, Animosity by COC. This band, like, this is where I really start understanding, like, this is like a hardcore band because, like, their first album, Eye for an Eye, that's more like a hardcore punk kind of thing. And then by this one, it's something different. It's heavier, it's nastier. And then they get even like a little weirder with this one. And the funny thing about them is the first time I get to see them, they play with the Accused. And I think it was the Accused, COC, and GBH at the Anthrax in Connecticut. And I get to the show, and it's before the internet, and COC's got a new singer. Mike Dean's not there, and it's a different sound, and it's that first album that they do, and I didn't have it at the time, so I'm just like, who the fuck is this? Like, I didn't even recognize any of the songs up there. It was so disappointing because I just didn't know who they were. But the great thing was in 2007, I believe, they Pepper Keenan and was doing like Down and whatever. So the rest of the guys in COC had some time, so they put together a mini tour, like 7 shows, and they did Animosity in its entirety. And I went to that, and it was like my favorite show of the year in 2007 because I just never got to see that original lineup.
That was great. I
You
saw
went to
that.
that one? Oh,
Yeah, I
with
went to that.
today,
That was great.
today's the
That was
day
cool.
opening up. Yeah,
Yeah.
today's the day was great opening
Yep.
up. So that's cool to hear that you were at that show. That show was fucking amazing.
I love the first 2 COC albums.
You mean like the Technocracy, or are you talking the Eye for an Eye?
Eye for an Eye and
Oh yeah,
Animosity. Yep.
yeah. I like Technocracy a lot too, but it's kind of like the EP, I guess. But all right. So then I'm gonna go to, like, this is kind of weird to pick this one as one of the bands, but it was like it's the same thing. Like, some of these bands only lasted like 2 albums and stuff. So this is one of those bands back then. I should have brought out the CDs too because they had, like, I got all the demos and stuff. But DBC, I'm wearing the shirt. This album just was so powerful to me. I still never stopped listening to this since it's come out. It's never gotten tiring to me. It always sounds fresh. I just blast the hell out of this album. It's so powerful, and it's more like a metal kind of hardcore. But then they're one of those bands that their second album, they kind of switch it into being. I actually got 2 copies. I got an autographed copy. But the second album, Universe, they kind of lose a lot of their hardcore. It's still got fast parts and stuff, but they become more of a weird sort of voivodish metal kind of band, which it's really cool. I love that album too. I usually can't play one without playing the other, even though they're so different from each other. But yeah, DBC, I wish they would have did more with that first album sound, Dead Brain Cells, but such an
Their
unbelievable album.
drummer Jeff Saint, we used to play in a full-on hardcore band called Vomits and the Zits in Montreal, and we were shocked when we realized that he was tagged as the drummer for Dead Brain Cells because Jeff had really like a Keith Moon style, like really not precise like a metal drummer. He was much looser like Keith Moon and playing bands that sounded like Minor Threat and like Dead Kennedys and stuff like that. So it was amazing to see how he was incorporating his style in the metal structure of DBC, but because he came from a hardcore punk root, it made a DBC sound very unique.
Definitely. The
With
drums are so important. The drums are
oh,
just so
yeah,
incredible and important. And even on the next album, where it's more, the music seems slower and a little bit weirder and spacier, but the drums are still like kind of like that Keith Moon, where they're super busy, but it
yeah,
just so like tight sounding. Man, the drums or the rhythm and drums are just fucking incredible on that. And I worship them two albums, man. I can't say enough good stuff about it. They both would make my top 100 album list of all time of any music. But all right, so another one really important one for me is Crumbsuckers, Life of Dreams. This is another one. It was just so powerful, and a lot of people didn't like this one when it came out. Bomb, Beast on My Back. I love this, and this is one of those bands that start off kind of more of a hardcore crossover. But they did have the crossover sound because they had like cool leads in there and stuff, amazing guitar player. But then people didn't like this one because they thought they got too metal. And I remember that being a problem with a lot of the hardcore kids back in the day. Like the thrash people didn't seem to mind it when the hardcore bands got more metal, but hardcore kids hated it when the hardcore band got more metal. And I remember people hating Suicidal and DRI and the Crumbsuckers and
Yep.
even Cro-Mags and stuff. Like people just didn't like that. They wanted them to be more hardcore. But yeah, I love these guys. And I told the story, but I went to try to see them with the Cro-Mags and Anthrax at L'Amour's, but it was before the internet. So I drove all the way down to L'Amour's and the show was sold out. And I ended up getting arrested on the way home. We got lost and ended up in West Point, and we actually at an MP station, military police station, at a post for directions, and made us get out of the car. And I had a butterfly knife on. They made me stay in jail in a military police station jail cell overnight until my parents picked me up the next day. And
Oh,
just ridiculous. But I did get to see Crumbsuckers later, but I'll bring that up. I guess. Well, I seen them when they reunited for a couple of shows, and they played BB Kings,
yep.
and I
Yep.
finally got to see him after all those years. So okay, so then yeah, my down to my number one already is Carnivore Retaliation, one of the greatest albums of all time to me. Love the first album. The first album's total metal, no hardcore feelings at this time. They're one of the few bands that were a metal band that went more hardcore, which is very rare. I can't think of many that took that route. It was always the other way around, where
yeah.
it seemed like hardcore bands got better at playing, so they started throwing in guitar solos and they started getting more intricate. So they just became better players, so they didn't want to play simpler music. But Carnivore was the band that went the other way, and Retaliation is one of my all-time favorite albums, and I love the lyrics, love the whole feel to that album, just incredible. So yeah, that's my five.
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah, I think for me, like, and we talk about this multiple times, when we were living in those moments when we were younger, we didn't grasp like how special the time was. We just lived through it. But we had a lot of like signs and indication that they could be a merger of style because like Ralph, I love your point about Motorhead. Like Motorhead to me, I always seen a completely love of the band from both the metal world and the punk world. Like if you ask like a full-on guy who has like a Cryptic Slaughter t-shirt, what do you think of Motorhead? Oh yeah, Lemmy. Like it was never even a debate. Like I never seen a punk person saying that I don't like Motorhead.
No.
Um, so So I think that was, and the funny thing about Motorhead is not only they had the metal crowd and the punk crowd, they also had the biker crowd. So they were like they were a triple genre crossover. They could play after ZZ Top, or they could play after
Yeah,
DRI, or they
yeah,
could
the
play after,
hard rock
Ooh,
bands like them too.
ooh, I love
Hard
yeah.
rock people.
So, and another thing that really, another band, so when I got to get into Motorhead, I started to get into Tank. And Tank, Algie Ward, was playing in the Den before. And so he even left like a straight up punk band and then started something a little bit more metal. So there was a lot of signs, but I think to me the most things was like starting to see like the older guys like when Voivod moved to Montreal and we didn't even realize like we didn't even know it was possible a band from Quebec with making that noise. But when they came to Montreal, they brought to us so much knowledge on punk and art. Like they were already wearing like Discharge shirts and GBH and all the Ramones and you know I already listened a little bit of that stuff on my own. I always liked the Ramones. Like at the same time I like Kiss, but it kind of like to me it was a perfect progression to where we got at 1984, 85. Like it looks like it's just organically happened without anybody planning it. It's just happened. And you know, the amount of bands that I at the same time, and it was a movement that was around the world. It was not even like you know, New York had that fucking great group gang, like bands that were like carrying the flag of that hardcore punk slash crossover eventually. And California has its own people, but also like Brazil and Italy and England, everywhere there was these bands going on. And it was hard not to go like, and I'll still remember like the first show I ever was, and we talk about that many times, was at the Ritz when Cro-Mags, Carnivore, Voivod, and all like Overkill open for Venom. Um, I've never been caught into a mosh pit with 2,000 skinhead before. And I'm going to tell you right now, it was pretty fucking it was pretty scary.
Yeah, it was.
And we were like in that freaking vortex. Like I remember one guy grabbed my other guitar player, Burned, by the hair and bring him in the and but it was not like fights or anything like that. It was just like come with us. And then it's kind of like already starting to have like a merge of like there was no fights, nobody fought.
Yeah, no, that
Uh,
not that it was violent, but no fighting.
yeah, like it was not like that, but it was crazy that these like completely two different worlds were all together. And at first we were like, oh my God, we gotta get kill here. But no, we ended up, you know, like I ended up meeting like, you know, guys from Disease and Agnostic Front, and everybody was there.
Yeah, yeah.
Like everybody, like from Monty Connor to Don Kay to
Everyone, yeah. That was the old
Norbert Riggin to like everybody was there. So that was the first show, and then after that, then it was like an onslaught of bands like that came to Montreal that completely annihilated. Like you know, that story of I still remember it was right the Rising Sun on St. Catherine Street in Montreal. There was DRI, the headliner, with COC and Gangrene from Boston were the opening
nice.
bands. And I never seen so many broken ankles, broken legs, people, and like people with broken legs and still freaking going and hopping on one leg, and then like people going down with the paramedics, like EMTs helping them going into ambulances is crazy. Like it was so violent, but it was that's what we do. Like there was no rules. We didn't know. We didn't try that before, and then it was just like I see now, like you know, like if you go into mosh pits now, a lot of people are helping each other. I think back then it was still some help from each other, but it was much more aggressive,
I was violent. Yeah. Yeah,
right? Like and
but if somebody fell, you pick them up.
yeah,
But other than that, but you still beat the hell out of everybody else around you.
yeah. But I also one time stage dove and did a flip and hit a girl with my boots
Oh,
right in the face.
ow.
And her face exploded, and I felt so bad. We took care of her. We brought like, and then they said, then no more,
Yeah, I know my
no
diamond.
more stage diving. But like it was completely. We were like a true. It was a movement, like, and we of course we had the trash movement, and then the Celtic Frost, and the Creator and Voivod and all that, and then there was even that merge with all those other bands. Now there was more of us, um, and it's just like crazy memorable moment. Um, so I'll go with my favorite. I'll go. Um, I can't pick a favorite. I think I'm having a hard time to place them because they move all the time. But I want to talk about Canada, and I want to talk about Dayglow abortions. Um,
Nice.
these guys, to this day in 2026, like 40 plus years later, they're still like touring in a van that is duct taped together. That is running on gas that they probably like stole from another vehicle, but they are legends because they're so dysfunctional that they're legendary.
Great.
um, but I really like Dayglow Abortion. I think there was something to their riff that was a little bit metal, and they were like really like extremists in their lyrics and what they were doing, like Stupid World, Stupid Song, some of their songs, like, and they were like very well loved in Canada. uh so Dayglow Abortion is one of them for Canada. um I want to talk about Raw Power from Italy, the cover I have behind me. That's a band. We talked when we met with the guitar player from Nuclear Assault. We talk about the sound on Game Over missing that crunch, like on the guitar sound. When we met with Anthony Romente for the Nuclear Assault episode. Well, Raw Power is the complete opposite. The freaking riffing is just coming through the speaker like crushing. And that's a band that, like, I was in a party and somebody put it on, and right away I went to the cassette deck and tried to see what it was, and it was a tape cassette. Then I had to ask the, hey, what is this? What is this? He goes, oh, it's Raw Power. So Raw Power, what I mentioned from Italy. Another band that I really like early was Ratos de Porão from Brazil.
It was cool.
They're also another band that were completely different than all that super hardcore thrash black death going on. Like Brazil was really aggressive. From their metal has always been like from Sepultura to Sarcophago, like they were just like always like the most extreme. So Ratos de Porão was definitely one of those bands. um the New
And they
York.
go back to like 1981. They go way back, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, well,
And they're the other band is the 4 or 5 amazing New York area band. Like we talked Nuclear Assault, like Agnostic Front, Crumbsuckers, SOD. To me, like those are definitely like um albums that like are like definitely in my top 5. But I think for me, when I talk about crossover and what really something that I can still listen to this day, it's got to be Suicidal Tendencies. Um, those like the Join the Army album that at first I didn't like, and then all the way to Light Camera Revolution, and even the records, some of those records in between. To me, it's just they had yeah, Possessed to Skate. What an amazing video. Um, they just they were funny but serious. They were nice but dangerous. Like there's something different, and all of us went to a Suicidal Tendency show, and um, like How Will I Laugh Tomorrow, and I Can't Even Smile Today, the Controlled by Hatred EP, Feel Like Shit, um, and their live performance. Uh, Mike Muir, like he was an amazing frontman. Like he really get the crowd going, and I don't know,
And it does.
yeah, it worked for me. Like they were definitely like um, they were like leading a movement, right? They were in there, like, and I was seeing like cute little metal girls with Suicidal Tendencies shirt, and then so to me that's kind of like the top that I have, like similar with Verbal Abuse. Like Verbal Abuse were so good that um, Slayer did a crossover album called Undisputed Attitude. And on that album, they had two, three, four covers of Verbal Abuse, which they said was a huge influence on them, especially Jeff Hanneman, on how he was attacking that, how he was doing that, like writing the songs for Slayer, being influenced by these guys. So that's my choices for. I know I didn't do it like the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, but it's super difficult for me to pick some. Like I think like most of these band you guys mentioned, like all of these albums could potentially be like COC could potentially be my number one album every day. If I go and listen back to it, like it all comes back to my mind. And there's so many other ones, like Broken Bones was another one that's a big hit and great band. So anyway, I'll stop talking because I can talk about this like we can start on it for 2 hours. So like, why don't we go through our honorable mention?
All right.
Ed, you're up first.
All right, cool. Yeah, I got a couple of them. A couple of them have been mentioned already. Cryptic Slaughter, Convicted album, also came out in 1986. The Accused, The Return of Martha Splatterhead, the first record on Earache Records, the first release, which is very cool, also 1986. Ludacris, Immaculate Deception, 1986. Wehrmacht, actually, you know what? I forgot. I have a couple records here. The Cro-Mags album. No, the Crumbsuckers, rather. The Cryptic Slaughter, Convicted. Ludacris.
Yeah.
Then we got Wehrmacht.
Yeah.
Oh, I love these guys. Their first two albums, Shark Attack and Wehrmacht. Great band. I got the pleasure of booking them twice. They got back together thanks to Brian Patterson, rest in peace. He basically got them back together, the original guys, and set up an East Coast tour for the first time ever. Scott from Cryptic Slaughter was in the band at the time, so they even did 3 different songs live, and they were just so intense. I got to drink from the boot live on stage, and it was just a magical night. We sold out St. Vitus, and it was insane. And then Brian Patterson, actually Matt, his brother, got them back together for the Day of Death up in Buffalo. And it was the original 5 guys again. And, well, they were a handful that weekend, but they were amazing once they got on stage. They were so great. They actually met me. They picked me up at the train station with Matt. Really, really cool guys. Really, really great guys. And a fantastic band. Let's see. A couple more honorable mentions. Put my paper here. All right. We got XL.
Yes.
Great band. This is a great album, no question about it. My favorite thing they ever put out, the Personal Onslaught demo. The first thing I heard from them, and for some reason it still sticks to me this day. I was listening to it yesterday, and the 3 demos they put out are great in '85 and '86. The album came out in '87. Just a great band.
Was there a relationship between XL and Suicidal?
I don't know.
Mike Muir managed them.
He did, because they played a lot together out there. I have flyers with them. Yeah,
they were both the big skate bands from the same area, Venice, I guess. And I seen Excel back in the '80s with Dark Angel, right, and Mike Muir was at the show, just hanging out at that show at Long
Okay,
Island.
okay. Yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah, I didn't
knew like
realize.
I thought like Excel, Suicidal, and No Mercy had like some member
Yeah,
mixing
well,
or something.
yeah, No Mercy. It was Mike Neal singing. So
Yeah, yeah. Okay, okay, okay.
Cool.
I didn't dream that.
No, no, you did not. Yeah, the last other band I was going to mention is Verbal Abuse, who also started out hardcore, and by '86 turned crossover, and they were great
Yeah,
at it. And like I said, I know there was a lot more bands after that and a lot more great albums, but these were the albums and the bands that meant
yeah,
so much to me, and I still listen to them. I love them.
yeah. Great call. Good job. Uh, Count Ralphus, honorable
uh,
mention.
I went crazy like usual. I'll be putting stuff away for a while. I avoided talking about a bunch of some of the bands that you guys talked about, but some I'm going to repeat just because I got the albums out. And the one thing I forgot to pull out was the Raw Power that's behind you. I got that on vinyl, and it's on my list, and I didn't fucking pull it out. But yeah, Ed mentioned them, Ludacris. This album was like crossover, but then this album really gets more like metal. The second album, and then they
Yeah,
changed completely to the band Scatterbrain. Um, MOD, this album right here, I love this album. This first one, the first MOD is so classic. If you were a fan of SOD, it went right along with that. They got a little weaker as time went on, but then they started getting heavy again. But the magic wasn't there. They went to so many lineup changes and stuff. But this album, Method of Destruction, unbelievable. This one's a little bit more rare one. Doctor No, California band. Beyond Possession, another great old band. These guys talking about, but Cryptic Slaughter, Money Talks here, and Convicted. I have a couple of the CDs and stuff pulled out too, but just mention these guys: No Mercy, Mike Muir,
yeah.
side project band, Z Trope. One of those
Mhm.
weird ones, like, oh, this is crossover. Yeah, sure, it's crossover. Same thing with Gangrene here. You mentioned them really quickly before, but I didn't think of them as like a crossover band because they're just kind of what they were. I didn't think of them as too metal sounding, but I guess
Yeah,
to people that were into them earlier, that they got more metal sounding as time went on. You guys just talking about Excel is this one. I got Jokes on You and the classic Split Image. Now this one's a weird one because this one's like a band that they're a huge influence on thrash and the crossover scene would be Discharge, and like
yeah,
especially albums like this one and this. But these guys actually would go on. I got this box set of all their early albums on CD, and they put out a really horrible. I think it's the Grave New World album, but really horrible crossover where they went super metal and they sucked. They got booed when they played like the Ritz and stuff, but they're a band that's such an influential band that kind of ended up going in a different direction. It's just I'm on with them. Like I didn't bring out any GBH, but GBH is another one of those bands. They were like this heavy hardcore punk band, but they definitely were a big influence on thrash and stuff. But then their later albums, they started getting a little bit more metal. They haven't put out an album in forever. But the other band that's like them that I did pull out, but I don't see them. It's maybe I didn't pull it out. But the Exploited. Oh,
yeah.
I got a pile. But anyway, the last two Exploited albums, Beat the Bastards and Massacre. Another band, they were heavy, hardcore punk band, definitely influenced hardcore. But then they actually started getting really thrashy, and they were their last two albums. And again, just like GBH, they haven't put out an album in forever. This is a
Did I
band called
ever?
Void.
Oh yeah, like for the Exploited, I always thought like the album Horror Epics. I had like a real starting to have some components of metal with the big drums and
It's
uh
funny because that's my first album by them that I really got into was that album, and it probably because it did have like
yeah,
a sort of a thrash vibe. But it was like I got SOD, and then all of a sudden GBH and Exploited and Broken Bones and stuff all started making sense to me. And I would
yeah.
see the SOD guys wearing Broken Bones shirts and stuff. This is a band called Void. There's another band out there now that's getting popular named Void, and but this is a band that a lot of people will consider to be the very first uh, crossover, and they were from DC, and they did like a split 7 inch with some other band, and I guess it's super rare and hard to find, but a lot of people will say it's the first crossover. And if you watch the latest COC video that they put out, COC is a band that went from punk to hardcore to crossover and then to like stoner and doom and stuff. But in their newest video, they kind of have like some kind of hardcore vibes again. And Pepper Keenan has the band Void, just one word on the back of his leather jacket. It's this the logo for the band Void. So
Yeah.
it goes way back. A lot of people don't know them, but if you research like these books, they'll talk about the band Void being one of the very first that they can label as that. Ambiex, this is the album Rise. They're crust, like a lot of people consider them like crust punk or whatever, but they're definitely like a crossover band because they got metal as the time went on. This was a popular New York hardcore punk, New York hardcore thrash band, Leeway. This is their first 2 albums on one CD,
Yeah.
but very popular back then. Another band's Killing Time. They started off as Raw Deal, which was more of a hardcore, straight like hardcore band, but then they had like that crossover kind of the Cro-Mags kind of sound. Another band I only pulled out one CD by, but Black Flag, they're one of the big hardcore punk bands. But then by the time this album comes out, My War, they definitely got like a metal. They're crossing over into like a more of a metal sound. But this is near the end of their career. Final Conflict, another band that'll get thrown in there sometimes. This is a Crumbsuckers Turn Back Time, the early years, 1983 to 85. This is a rare double CD, and it's got
Wow.
all their early it got all their early stuff in there. And you can hear how they were more of a hardcore band back then, you know. Oh, here's the fucking exploded albums. The fucking
Yeah.
Massacre and Beat the Bastards. I know I pulled it out. Here's one, Attitude Adjustment, another kind of more obscure band. And here's another weird one that comes up in these books is The Mentors. I just pulled out one CD. I want to pull out all their albums, but The Mentors, they're kind of like a punk band because of what they're singing about and everything, but they also got leads going the whole time, and they got a metal vibe. That's a metal punk vibe. Oh, here's another Cryptic Slaughter one, and then yeah, DRI. I mean, just like these guys said, they invented the term, and I got mine signed by Spike and Kurt, like dealing with it, and they signed my Thrash Zone and Four of a Kind, and then Cro-Mags. I got my signed by Mackie and John Joseph in the frame behind me, but I also pulled out Best Wishes. Broken Bones, which you talked about. By the time I got to this album, Bone Crusher, this is like definitely metalheads like this. You know, this was
Yeah.
yeah, it's hardcore punk, but fucking the metalheads were liking it. But even their earlier albums, they definitely had that heavy vibe going with a bunch of Broken Bone shit. And then you guys are talking about Agnostic Front. I got this is definitely the crossover album, but this one had like thrash metal fans. I got my original Victim in
Them
Pain
in
with the
pain. Yeah.
this is the they don't like that album cover these days. They don't you can't find this with this album cover, but I pulled this one out. And here's a United Blood thing that they put out. It was different. I bet it's not the same 7 inch that I got. I got the 7 inch. I didn't pull out any of the 7 inches, but another band is Rest in Pieces. They start off as like a straight up hardcore band, and it's Armand who goes on to play drums. He's the singer in the Rest in Pieces, but he goes on to play drums in Sick of It All. And but
Oh.
this first band is fucking awesome. And their second album was more of a metal album, and I'm kind of one of in that group of people. Like I don't really like the second album because I liked how they were as more of a hardcore band, and then they became more of a metal kind of thing, and I didn't like that. But Sheer Terror, another great one. This is album right here, Just Can't Hate Enough. One of my all-time favorite albums. It's hardcore meet Celtic Frost is the way I always looked at them. And Denny was talking about on Verbal Abuse. Here's when they were more of a hardcore band. But then by the time they get to this album, VA Rocks Your Liver, it's like a drinking party and metal kind of album. And Wehrmacht, I have the Wehrmacht I have on cassette, which I forgot to pull out. but a couple last ones is Beowulf. I bought that cassette out. Cryptic Slaughter, Stream of Consciousness, so and English Dogs, another one of those bands that kind of start off as punk and hardcore and end up going into more of a metal sound. But yeah, I think that's it. That's it. Yeah.
Very nice, dude. That's you crushed my entire list of honorable mention to your
I could have pulled out. I could have pulled out so much more too, but I just have so much that I'm putting away as it is.
Yeah,
And that's why I didn't pull out any shirts or posters or any of that stuff because I'd be fucking putting back shit all week.
Maybe we'll have to do a part 2 of this show, and there'll be just you know apparels and like everything else we have.
Well, I knew when it was only us three, I figured I might as well just start pulling shit out. But I could have like grabbed full discographies of on CD. I could have pulled out full discographies of a lot of these bands, but I just.
But I'm glad you brought up Attitude Adjustment with Chris Contos, who went on to be with Machine Head, and then now's with Forbidden. I think that was one of the band that really stood out. I've seen them live before, like in the '80s, and they had a really great show. I think I can go Canada for honorable mention. Like the only few bands that you guys have not mentioned so far. There's definitely this SNFU. That was a band from Canada that was pretty big around that time in that genre. No Means No was another one that was kind of leaning around that. And same as a really cool band that you guys should check out is Sudden Impact from Toronto.
Oh, I remember them. They were good.
Yeah,
I had a video of them and some live shit. They were really good.
Yeah. I saw that, like same as you mentioned, Beyond Possession, right? I think it's Counter Office you mentioned. So these guys were from Calgary. And I remember, I think these guys and another band from Vancouver called House of Commons, they came to Montreal and somehow something happened with their van. So they kind of moved to Montreal by accident because they couldn't leave. Like their vehicle was broken and they started to live with us and have jobs and get money to fix the van so they could go back west. So that was a funny story from these guys. Back then, it was a little different. Like those punk bands were touring in those little vans and just go and play music. And sometimes they get stuck. They would stay somewhere and then they move there and then eventually move on. But
that's crazy.
Yeah. Like it's the same as the time I saw like Gigi Allen and the Murder Junkies, and they left with a stolen car. So. But yeah, so thank you guys for all that. Now let's talk about. I know
the one band I forgot was Nuclear Assault because we talked about it.
Of course, yeah.
But yeah, they were like the ultimate, like starting off as a crossover band.
Yeah,
stayed as a crossover.
Oh, they definitely crossed over.
Yeah, and
some people say Whiplash. Some people say Whiplash, but to me, it's like the ultimate thrash album. So I don't want to say the first album, but it does have a little bit of like a weird kind of a hardcore vibe to it because they were so fast and stuff and had slam parts to them. But
it's their delivery.
But they were a metal band.
Yeah. Just their delivery was kind of like the delivery of the way they were playing their instrument was the delivery was very aggressive, like hardcore punk. But it was a metal band.
It's just that weird fine line of what is hardcore crossover or not.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's just one of those bands. Whiplash is in both of these books that I pulled out. Though it's like there's a lot of things in there that I wouldn't consider. But
and I'm sure they played shows hundreds with some of the bands we've mentioned, like in the New York area. Like they probably did quite a bit. All right. So let's go through. I already did some concerts, but let's talk about memorable concerts for you guys. And if you have like flyers, let's pull it out. Let's show anything you got.
Sure. First off, we were talking about the Agnostic Front United Blood EP. Yes, this is not the original, and I checked the back. All proceeds go to the No Justice Justice Legal Defense Fund. It's the one you were talking about, right?
That's exactly.
Yep.
Yep, exactly what mine
Yep,
said.
that's what I figured. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so basically, when I got into hardcore and crossover back in 84, 85, I was a little metalhead. I had my hair a little long, and I was a pussy. I was not going to CBGB's to see DRI and Agnostic Front live because I would have got my ass beat. I knew young metalheads that did go, and they did get their ass beat. Shows like at the Ritz when Cro-Mags played with Venom, it was a violent show and a lot of punks there, but it was a metal show. If we went to the CBs for the matinee shows, little metalheads, we either got very intimidated, got our ass beat, or just not even let in, pushed out basically. So I didn't go. Some of my friends went. I would go to like the metal crossover shows, like the Cro-Mags. I saw dozens of times back then because they played all the metal shows, just like Nuclear Assault did the metal shows, and they were crossed over to the hardcore. Cro-Mags crossed over to the metal crowd in a big way. They played the Venom show. I saw them numerous times at Lemoore with all kinds of bands and the Ritz. DRI I saw at Lemoore. Agnostic Front I saw at Lemoore. COC I never saw back in the day when they were hardcore, unfortunately, because I wouldn't go to CBGBs to see them. Suicidal I didn't actually see until 87 when they were definitely crossover. But back in the day, Crumbsuckers, saw them numerous times. So Ludachrist at one point. I don't remember what show it was, but I know I saw them somewhere, probably at Lemoore with some band. And just they said all that the Cro-Mags was the biggest one I saw, and they were probably my favorite. Oh, Agnostic Front, damn! I knew I was forgetting somebody. They were great. Again, didn't go to see them at CB's during the matinee shows, but saw them at numerous other shows at Lemoore, at the Ritz a bunch of times, and damn, they were aggressive. Them and the Cro-Mags, my two favorite hardcore bands live. DRI, I started seeing. I saw them once at Lemoore. I think when they opened for Slayer. I think that's the first time I saw them when they opened for Slayer, and they were great. But Agnostic Front and Cro-Mags, two favorite hardcore crossover bands for sure. New York bands, what can I say? I love the style.
Yeah, definitely. It's got its own. It's to me like it's funny because you got the New York hardcore scene and then you got the New York death metal. So
Yeah,
it went from Agnostic Front, Crumbsuckers, Cro-Mags to that Incantation, Suffocation, Immolation. So
actually,
kind of
before I go, I will
yeah,
show some flyers.
yeah.
I have a couple of flyers here. Cro-Mags with COC.
Wow,
Wow.
very nice.
That's best wishes,
What is that?
Chromags. That's best wishes, Chromags, right? It's
I
a
believe
picture
it
of
is.
hard.
Yeah, it is
Just
hard.
from the picture,
Yep.
So
Because
I'm
it didn't look
trying to
like an
think.
old.
So you're seeing COC because you said you didn't see them. Oh, but did you go to that show or is that just a
No, I didn't go to
flyer?
that show.
Oh,
No,
okay,
most of the
okay,
flyers I'm going to show you, I wasn't at the shows.
okay.
But this is show. This was Cro-Mags. I don't know how well it's going to come out when they opened up for Venom at the Ritz.
Oh,
Because I
wow.
was right there in the front row, so I
Oh,
was
shit.
taking pictures of all the bands.
Nice.
So that was the Cro-Mags, and like I said, that's one of my favorites. Just a couple other quick flyers. The DRI. Let's see here. I'm not sure when this was. This was a little bit later DRI. We have here. This is a little older DRI. And this was definitely a wild DRI show I was not at. MDC and DRI CBGBs.
Mullion of Dead Cops.
Yep. We got Dr. No, Die Crutzen, and DRI.
Wow.
Die Cruising was another one that you could kind of maybe say at least one album was kind of metal. Like,
yeah, they definitely got
sounding.
into crossover metal. Yep. Let's see here. This was Agnostic Front, Cro-Mags, and SOD. When SOD first started, they were the opening bands.
Wow.
Sunday Matinee at CBGB's, Agnostic Front. Cause for Alarm album, Agnostic Front. Then we got Nausea, My Hoods, and Agnostic Front. Probably at CBGB's. They played CBGBs a lot.
Was Lethal Aggression part of that?
That's the
Some
name we should have mentioned. Yes, from the. I'm not going to say it. Of the bloody whore. Yes, of the fucking whore. But yes, we all know what it is.
yeah,
Fantastic. This one caught my eye. Agnostic fun and aggression, but it's not
yeah.
you.
No,
Not you guys.
it's the French spelling.
It might be. Yep.
Yeah, they only have one G. So that was the joke. The California English band had the French spelling, and the French Canadian aggression band had the English spelling.
Nice. Yeah. All right. The last one I want to show. We got here suicidal tendencies. 86 at the Stone.
Nice.
Suicidal joined the army. I thought I had one more suicidal here. Oh, actually. Yeah, this is an interesting one. Suicidal tendencies and Exumer, European
wow.
tour.
Wow.
Talk about crossover.
Straight up crossover. No mistake about it.
So, yeah, man. So, yeah, there you go. I mean, I love my crossover. It was a great time. I just wish I was more of a man to go to some of the shows at CB's.
All right, Count Ralphus, what you got for us for favorite concerts?
All right, so I'm just going to look through my list of stuff that I wrote down and I started pulling them out. And if there were shows that I went to, then I'll talk about them. So I had number one was Carnivore. So the first time I went to go see Carnivore, they canceled because Pete Steele worked as like a garbage man or a Towns Park guy or whatever, and he couldn't get out of work. But it was Whiplash and Carnivore, and I still have the flyer for that. And band Death Thrash was on the bill. Primeval played that too, but White Whiplash ended up headlining and Carnivore didn't, but I still got the flyer for that. But I did catch Carnivore, one of the final shows they did before they became Repulsion. They played a famous show called Negative Night. And Denny, you were talking about people getting, ambulances outside and stuff. This show was fucking insane. I was like 18 or so, and there was just fights every 2 seconds. It was sheer terror. Well, the first band was this band Toxemia, and some of the members from that band ended up being guys from Typo Negative later on. Then you had Biohazard, who was on the verge of putting out their first album. They didn't have their first album out yet, but they had a crew of people that were their friends. And every time Biohazard was on the bill, this was not the friendly metalheads versus hardcore friends. That no one was helping each other out. When you fell down in that pit and you had long hair, you were getting stomped into the ground. And these guys, they just started fights. That their crew started fights every time we seen them. I had friends that wouldn't go to a show if Biohazard was on the bill just because of their crew.
I agree. I hated going to Biohazard shows.
Yeah, Biohazard and that whole scene, it was the most violent of times. And I'm going to get to another Biohazard show, but Carnivore that night was incredible, and Sheer Terror played that night too. And I still have the event shirt from that night, which is one of my most treasured shirts. And yeah, Sheer Terror, seeing them for they only had the first album out at the time, so that was just a great time to catch them. All right, so then Crumbsuckers, I mentioned how I didn't get to see them. I got arrested, and I get to see them years later when they reunite. And that's another band I guess could kind of be considered a sort of a crossover band, but they're not from that era. Would be Propane, but they came a little later. But DBC, I get to see them at the Streets right as Universe comes out, and in the Streets in New Rochelle, great little place, and they were one of my favorite bands. I was so psyched to see them. I got 2 shirts from that night that I could have pulled out as props too, but I was real disappointed seeing them that night because one of the things is that first album, the vocals are so powerful to me, and you could hear every word with so much power and so much energy. And I don't know if it was deep in the tour and maybe he had lost his voice, but he was singing like he was kind of just talking the lyrics. It had no power, and it was just super disappointing. I mean, I was so happy I still got to see him. And then another weird thing is later on, they come back through again, And we had this little club in Middletown called the Rock Palace, and Ed's been up there when you bring Sepultura up there. But they were supposed DBC was playing there, and they did like an in-store Rock Fantasy, but the owner of the club died the night before, so there was no one to open the doors or nothing, and the fucking show got canceled. But they were already in town. But
Oh wow.
the singer wasn't there, and somebody else, like they knew it was canceled, so they just hung out someplace else or whatever. But we ended up hanging out with like the drummer and the other guitar player, and we smoked weed with them outside, and that's how come I
Oh,
got
that's
my
cool.
one DBC album signed. And so COC, I mentioned how I didn't get to see. I seen them, but it was not the hardcore version. But then I seen them a couple other times later on too. But then I got to me and Ed were both at that show where they did Animosity in its entirety, and
Right.
The Accused. I mentioned how I did get to see them, and it was Martha's Greatest Stories Ever Told. Wait, I always get the title get me screwed up. But anyway, it was a great show with seeing The Accused, the original guys back in the day. And then I seen The Accused AD that Ed put that
Right.
show together. So DRI, I seen them my first time at L'Amour's like Ed, but it was another show that I know Ed's been at because we've talked about it before. Is it was Creator and DRI, and we argue kind of about like what tours it was, but it was
Right.
crossover for DRI, and I say it was Terrible Certainty, but you said it was still Pleasure to Kill. But I'm
I
pretty
think
sure
it's
it was. 'Cause
terrible
I have
now.
Terrible Certainty.
Yeah.
I have Terrible Certainty shirts from that night
Yeah.
still, and I still have my original crossover shirt by DRI. But I've seen DRI a million times since then. One of the most memorable times, though, talk about a crossover show. It was at the Chance in Poughkeepsie. It was Sick of It All playing, and they, I think they just put out their first album. They were very unknown, but there was a handful of like skinheads there for them, and they were moshing around. And then Nasty Savage comes on from Florida. They come up, and they Nasty Ronnie starts doing these flips on stage and fucking just jumping up in the air and landing on his back and stuff. And it was crazy. And these little skinheads are fucking flipping off Nasty Ronnie. And I was there for DRI, and I wasn't really into Nasty Savage. Nasty Ronnie starts pointing at all those little skinheads that are flipping him off. He's like, I'll meet every one of you outside one on one. I'll go through the whole line of you guys. I'll fucking take every one of you on one, but I'll fight all of you. But one on one. And it was great. These skinheads were just looking at him like, what? And me and my metalhead friends were like, yo, this fucking band rules. And I've been a Nasty Savage fan ever since that night. But DRI was great again that night. I think that was Four of a Kind tour. SOD, I've seen them multiple times. They played the Chance, and they played the a couple times. I think they played the Chance, and they played at Asbury Park, and I seen them someplace else too. But MOD, I seen them a few times. Cro-Mags, I seen multiple times. I didn't get to catch them with the original lineup back in the day, but I seen them at Best Wishes tour. They played with Destruction. Destruction had released from Agony had just come out, or Life Without Sense, the double live album just came out because I have the T-shirt from that. But then years later, Joseph and Harley reunite, but no Paris there. And then I seen the Cro-Mags other time where it was John Joseph and Mackie, but not like I never got to see him with all of them. But the funny thing is hanging out with them after the Chance show when Harley and John Joseph all of a sudden are buddy buddy. After the show, they're going around handing out cookies. And I heard later they were like pot cookies or something, but they were just so friendly and they looked like they were getting along so good. But the whole
Really?
war started up again right after that tour. I don't know how long it lasted, only a couple months, but they were
Yeah,
back
last
to
one.
hating each other right after. Yeah, Sheer Terror I've seen multiple times. The main one was that first time at that Negative night. But I got to see them a bunch of times. One time they had Tony from Whiplash playing drums, and it was funny. We were hanging out by their van after the show, and they had a little flyer of that famous picture where Tony was in Slayer for a minute, and it had there was like a centerfold in a magazine, and they had a photocopy of it on the van. It said, "Come meet the drummer from Slayer," on their van But that guy has played in so many bands, other hardcore bands too. Tony from Whiplash, Agnostic Front. I've seen a bunch of times. Memorable night for them was for me was my first show I ever went to with my wife. after like 2 weeks of seeing each other, she's like, "What are you doing this weekend?" I said, "I'm going to this concert in the city." She's like, "Oh, can I come?" I'm like, "Yeah, all right." And she showed up at my house dressed all like normal girl would, and I was like, "You're not going like that." And I made her put on a Cannibal Corpse Butcher That Birth shirt. But that show was Malevolent Creation, Agnostic Front, Cannibal Corpse, and Obituary at the Ritz. So that, what about a crossover night? Is that Agnostic
Yeah,
Front
man.
with Obituary and Cannibal Corpse and Malevolent Creation? All right. So this one Excel. So I mentioned it briefly before. It was it was Biohazard is at this point they're getting on every fucking bill around, every thrash bill, and every time it's always turned into big fights and fucking people getting fucked up. But so did Ed, I think I might have asked you this before, but did you go to this show at Biohazard, Excel, and Dark Angel at Sundance in Long Island?
Definitely. Yep.
Because I know you said you don't you stopped going to Biohazard shows, but
Yeah,
this was
no,
kind of
I
early
was
on
heavy Dark
still.
Angel. I mean, anytime Dark Angel came anywhere near New York, I went.
That's what I remember you saying that. That's right. Well, this was one of the craziest shows I ever went to. So that fucking crew was there. And for Biohazard, we're just hanging out and we're in the back and we're watching fights going on left and right like usual. They're just fucking anybody. It's weird because they would attack people that jumping in the pit for their band. Biohazard's playing, Metalhead jumps in the pit. If they're not part of their crew, they're fucking beating them guy down. And the guy's
Yep.
dancing for the band that these guys are there, you know. But this could be a whole episode in itself because earlier in the night we're outside and we're partying before we go in, and we see Mike Muir out there, and we get to meet him because he's managing fucking Excel. But we're playing music, and a car pulls up next to us. My friend's got a cool system, and he's blasting like corn or something. And these guys get out and they're wearing like Biohazard shirts and they're really friendly and they're talking to us and we're all out there smoking stuff. And one of my friends is like, "Yeah, fuck Biohazard. They suck. Every time we see them, they start trouble and this and that." And he fucking like slags them. And then these guys leave and they go hang out with all the Biohazard crew. They're wearing shirts for them. So my friend kind of targets us like early on. And we're only four of us. We go all the way fucking 3 hour ride to this fucking club. But anyway, Biohazard plays, there's fights like crazy. Then Excel starts playing, and we get up there for them because we love Excel. And uh, after like two songs, my friend's like headbanging, and this like skinhead, I call them skinhead, but they were like just like the crew. That's how they all looked. They're just like crew cut people, whatever. He'd going around, and every time he went around the pit, he'd dive into my friend while my friend's like headbanging, not paying attention. I'm behind him, and I was tripping on acid. But I could see this guy fucking going around targeting my friend. And then I'm like, yo, wake up here. This guy fucking keeps banging it. So as he comes around this lot next time, my friend pushes him into the pit. And it was like they were just waiting for someone to react because all of a sudden, two other guys come over and they start surrounding him. And some black guy that was with him, he comes over and he's got his hand cocked back and he's about to punch my friend. And I'm like right behind him and they didn't know who he was with or anything. And right as he's about to hit my friend, they grab his arms like they were just gonna hold him and let this other guy hit him. I just reached behind my friend and I clocked him right in the face, and he went flying back, hit the stage, and fell down. And then before you knew it, it was like 20 people. That's how it always was with them. It was never like a fair fight. It was like they just this mob mentality. They would jump on you and stuff. But anyway, we're trying to it gets broken up. The bouncers come and break it up. We were stupid. We didn't leave. We should have just went to the back of the club or whatever after that. But nope, we came there for Excel. So, actually, we Excel got broken up like two times because of the fights and stuff. But then Dark Angel comes on, and maybe like the second song of Dark Angel, my friends up there again headbanging, and they know him now, and they're targeting him. And a guy, he's kind of, I don't want to say who he is because he's still around, but this guy from a band, another Brooklyn band, notorious fighter, troublemaker, he had rings on. And as my friend's sitting there headbanging, he went around the pit and he stopped right in front of him. My friend's coming down with his head, and he boom straight into his mouth, rips his mouth open with these rings on, and blood just goes everywhere. And he falls right back into my arms. I start carrying him back. At this point, they know who the other guys in our crew are, which is only four of us. So they like 10 of them jump on my one friend. And there's so many people trying to hit him that is funny because my other friend was watching and he said they were hitting each other. They were hitting their own friends because there was too many people on the one guy, so they couldn't even get to him. So they're just hitting their own friends, trying to get the one guy. My friend's on the bottom of the pile, and he's fighting with another notorious like guy who later he was in the fucking Biohazard videos and stuff like that. And this guy, he went on to a band too, but he was in the bottom of the pile. My friend stuck his thumb right in his eye, and like he was getting hammered from 100 people, but he knew to fucking hold the guy in a headlock and then stick his thumb in his eye. And anyway, I just break everything up again. I'm the only one who's hit somebody out of my crew and didn't get hit. I'm the only one. My other friend, he gets fucking black eye and bloody. And so out of four of us, the bouncers come over, they break everything up. Dark Angel has to stop playing. And all of a sudden, we see all the fucking skinheads and everybody running out of the club. And we see the guys from Biohazard, everybody's running out. We're like, good, they're beating somebody else up outside. Let's just fucking, hopefully they'll play. We can watch the rest of the show. My one friend's bleeding really bad, though. And then the bouncers come up to us and they're like, yo, you guys got to leave. And like we were the ones starting the trouble or something, but it wasn't that. It was that they were all outside waiting for us, and they said they were acting like they were going to fuck up people's cars and stuff once we came out. So they opened the door for us to leave, and there's like it looked like the Biohazard video. There was like 50 of them, and they were sitting on cars, just sitting there waiting for us, like the Warrior movie or something. We look outside, we're like, we're not fucking going out there. They're like, yo, you guys gotta leave. They're gonna mess up cars out there. We're like, well, fuck you. Go fucking call the cops. We're like fucking gonna throw us out to be fucking mutilated out there. And there was a back entrance around the side, and we were actually parked closer back to the back. So anyway, they let us out that back door, and we look out, and we could see that crew of people like all sitting in the car with their eyes fixated on the door. And we just slowly start walking towards our car, but we look like a mangled. Every one of my friends is all beat up, they're bleeding, so we're taking forever. And then somebody notices us, the one fat guy who got his eye gouged. He's like, yo, you fat motherfucker. He wanted my other fat friend who had in the headlock, and he sees them. And then now it's like out of a movie, they're coming towards us, and they're slowly kind of getting like a pace going, and my friends are going so slow. I'm like, come on, come on. Then it's like out of a movie where he's trying to get in the car and the fucking key's not working. And I'm just like, oh my God, we're at our car. But anyway, he gets it in, we get in, and we take off right as they're like trying to find bricks and stuff to throw at us. And we pull out of there, and luckily we made it and we fucking survived. But it's one of the craziest stories I ever had at a show. So I had to go all into that one. And so yeah, Suicidal, seen them a bunch of times. Leeway, got to see them with Cro-Mags and Voivod when they played the Chance. Leeway was the opening band. And I see them years later when they played with Just Like the Singer. Never seen Gangrene, seen Nuclear Assault a bunch of times. Yeah, a bunch of these bands I've never seen. Never got to see Cryptic Slaughter, Dayglow Abortions, or Discharge, or Broken Bones. Broken Bones, I was going to see Broken Bones and Whiplash at the Moors, and my friend started doing coke, and he was turning everybody on to coke, and we got like a half an hour into the ride, and the coke was gone, so he started jonesing, and he turned around and fucking wanted to go do coke instead of fucking. And I was the only one that was like, "Come on, we're going to this concert," and I never got to see Broken Bones, and that would have been my one chance. Mentors, got to see them a couple times. Got to meet El Duce, he was awesome. Yeah, I guess that's pretty much, yeah, that's pretty much it. That other story is too long, so.
Amazing, amazing. So okay, let's talk about some things I haven't mentioned before. So um around like 87, 88, um I I was doing what the ads doing now. So by default, I became a booker, show promoter in Montreal for about 2 years. Uh, and The name of the bar that I was booking at was called the Blacklight. Um, and what happened is um, we started to hang out at the bar, and then I proposed to the owner, like, "Hey, I have a band from New York, want to come and play here, and they're looking for a place to play. Like, I could negotiate for you and all that." So Crumbsuckers came to play at that bar. That was the first band I ever booked. and of course sold out concert. So the owner was a Vietnamese guy, knew nothing about that, but he couldn't believe it was packed. So he said, "Okay, you're the new manager of the venue, and you'll be booking bands." So through that venue, I booked Broken Bones, Anvil, UK Subs, Crumbsucker, GBH, Agnostic Front, Verbal Assault, Fatal Illness, The Accused. So of course, I was doing like some more like metal stuff, but I always had like that naturally like ability to book. And around like 87, 88, same as in New York, these like crossover shows were just packed because you were like able to cater to two different crowds. So um, some memorable concerts there for sure. The other one that comes to mind is the No Speed Limit in Montreal, where it was one of the first Montreal concert where you had both world booked together. We had Voivod headlining both nights with DRI, Possess. We had Sacrifice from Toronto, Agnostic Front, Nuclear Assault. Um, Amazing night. Crazy, crazy trash there. And we talk about that a little bit with Anthony from Nuclear Assault in our episode, but that's another one that comes to mind. And the rest, like similar to you guys, a lot of the package. You guys saw some very special package that I didn't get the chance to really see in Montreal because of that New York scene. But one that really stood out was Bad Brains came up to Montreal from DC. And they were on MDC, or also I think from Washington
Yeah,
D.C.
from Washington.
Um,
Yeah,
they were opening the show, and oh my God, like Bad Brains were a real weird type of band, but when they played a show, it was an event, and like it was like so hot and humid, and like MDC was just crazy singing song like John Wayne was a Nazi, and they're just like a crazy experience. So that's it. That's some of the we had like we had our own like hardcore punk scene in Montreal with Genetic Control and Fair Warning and No Policy and Unrule. Um, but at some point, some of these bands like Aggression played with Unrule, and then there was more and more crossover shows after that. So similar to we had our own little world. But we had always had those great bands from the U.S. coming. Like I said, like the COCDRI Grant Gangrene show was very memorable. DRI live at that time, like I mean, it was an experience because the crowd was just as part of the band. The crowd was part of the show. Like they're just diving, like incredible distance from the stage. I think we were all like just crazy stuff going on. So, so that's it. Anything else you guys would like to mention before we
Yeah,
wrap up?
yeah, I gotta mention something. I remember there was a bunch of flyers at the end of this one of these books, and this first flyer that comes up, it's Motorhead Cro-Mags plus it's hard to read, but it's plus Raw Power and Canucks Dayglow Abortions, all in one
Oh,
show. So then fucking this is amazing that I'll take a picture of this and send it to you, Denny, because I just happened to just take a quick look at this, but Dark Angel, Crumbsuckers, and Aggression, and it's your aggression.
yeah,
no,
yeah,
That's huge, guys. Dark
yeah,
Angel and Crumbsuckers with
yeah,
Aggression, and yeah, it's Voivod. I'm trying to see this, like, UK subs, Broken Bones, NFU, SNFU, Sacred Reich, Mighty Sphincter. Wow, that's a cool one. Yeah, Nuclear Assault with Paul Bailoff's Piranha, Exodus, DRI, and Aggression. Exodus, DRI, and Aggression. Now, this is the other aggression because it's
yeah.
really right.
the 1G. And then Mentors and Dr. No. Uh, see, at Cryptic Slaughter. This is the Impulse Manslaughter is another weird old one, but they're playing with Dog Tuesday. Corrosion of Conformity with Possessed and Blast. Megadeth with Verbal Abuse.
Wow.
Zetro, Carnivore and Whiplash. It's almost the same show that I went to, but then there's another aggression. I guess it's the other one that's with China White and Uniform Choice and Ludacris. Oh, I forgot to mention the Ludacris show that I did go to was at the Streets. And I believe the band Raw Power was opening, and they ended up becoming Killing Time, which is a band that I mentioned. But yeah, then it's got the top 50 crossover records. And, a lot of the bands we picked already are talked about. There's some bands I never heard of and stuff. Then there's the top 20 most influential crossover records, 20 records that appeal all around. And then there's 20 demos and obscure bands. So Ed probably know a bunch of those ones. And then this new book has like the same sort of thing. They got pictures and flyers throughout this whole book, this crossover book. But the very end of it, again, it just has like lists of stuff like that. But yeah, that was all. I just wanted to, I just happened to remember that there was some flyers in there.
Cool.
Amazing. Amazing stuff.
I'll send you that picture of that flyer though, if you don't have it. Dark Angel, Thumbsuckers and Aggression.
Yeah.
That must have been amazing.
That's good memories playing with well, I said that story before, but the guitar players from Suckers, they were like classically trained and they could play like anything, like Van Halen to Al Di Meola to Yes to they were teaching the guys in Dark Angel and the guys in Aggression were just backstage like, what the hell is going on? We're getting schooled by this punk band.
Then he ends up the one guy, Chuck, ends up going into Jenna Torturers, and you don't hear any of the killer guitar playing. Like you hear some cool riffing and stuff, but no killer like leads and stuff. But he joined Jenna Torturers for a long time. He was with them.
But in like Life of Dreams album, like it's just crazy, the guitar solos and all the guitar work is it's definitely one of the best out there. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, Dave Mustaine was a fan, and there's the famous story of Crumbsuckers playing CBGBs, and Kirk Hammett comes through the crowd, and he gets up on stage with the Crumbsuckers to play one song, and people are flipping him off and even like spitting on him, and Billy Milano had to go into the crowd and like grab the people that were like spitting at him and basically protect Kirk Hammett from getting beat up while he was on stage and shit.
Come on, it's Kirk. He's a nice one.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, that's it. Let's wrap it up. To all the subscribers out there for Rock Fantasy Files, please follow the channels, promote us out there. We want more people to be talking about metal in the comments. We want to hear about your crossover stories. We want to hear about your favorite crossover records. Tell us about those magical years and how much what it means to you guys. We always read the comments, and we love hearing what you have to share about those crossover years in the 80s. So anyway, this is us, me, Sasquatch, my friend Ed, Count Ralphus. Thank you guys, and until next time, stay metal and stay crossover. See you guys.